In this video tutorial, I will show you how to create a topographic map. We will be creating this map focusing on a very small historic area called Rush, Arkansas. To get started, you need to go to the Arkansas GIS office and find their 2018 DEM 1 meter and copy their REST endpoint URL. And then connect to a new ArcGIS server using this REST service URL. After you have connected, you will open up your catalog pane and add the 2018 1 meter DEM. After you've added this DEM, right-click on the layer in your content pane and select Properties. We are going to change our visible scale range from the show layer between these certain scales to show layer at all scales. After you have added the DEM layer to your map, you can see in the contents pane that this raster layer has pixel values that range from 16 meters to 824 meters. This raster layer has pixels that are 1 square meter in size, and each pixel has an elevation value. You cannot really see the pixels no matter how far you zoom in, and the pixels are not listed in an attribute table because that would be an incredibly long attribute table. But you can see the elevation values for a certain area by using your Explore tool to just click on a part of the map. So we can see here that this area, this pixel I clicked on in southeast Arkansas, has an elevation of 54 meters. But if I move up to the Ozarks, we can see the pixel values are going to be higher in this area. This one specifically that I clicked on was 695 meters of elevation. For an example, I have also added an imagery layer, which is also a type of raster layer. However, its pixel values represent the RGB color scale. You can see this both in the content pane, how it, instead of listing values for each pixel, it lists that each pixel has a value for red, green, and blue. And then when you use the Explore tool to click on the imagery layer in your map view, it creates a pop-up that tells you the RGB value for that specific pixel that you clicked on. This is just a bit of an introduction into how raster layers work. You do not need to add this imagery layer unless you really want to. Next, we are going to navigate to our area of interest, which is Rush, Arkansas, and we are going to do that using the Locate tool that is found in our Map tab. You can just click on Locate, and if you type in Rush, Arkansas, the first option that pops up is our area of interest. Now you are going to set your map zoom level, and this will give us the map extent that we will use to clip our DEM. So in the bottom left of your map view is a scale option where you can choose from preset options. You can click Customize and set your own scale options, or you can simply type in this bar and it will give you the scale that you type in. So I want you guys to use a scale of 30,000. And I want you to have the Buffalo River roughly in the bottom right and the intersection of these two county roads roughly in the top left. And now we are going to clip our DEM, or our digital elevation model. To do this, go to Analysis, click on Tools, and search for Clip Raster. Open the Clip Raster tool and fill in the appropriate parameters. Your input raster will be your DEM. Do not worry about the red X mark right now. Leave your output extent box empty. If a value accidentally shows up in there, you can just highlight it and delete it. Next, we will set this rectangle section. This is going to be our clip extent. So just click on the button that looks like a map. It is called Current Display Extent, and that will update our top, left, right, and bottom fields. And you can see that the red X that was up here by input raster has disappeared. And you can leave the name that it automatically generates for this output raster, and then you can click Run. Now you have your clipped raster just for the area that your map extent was showing. And next we are going to use this raster to create contour lines. In order to create contour lines, we are going to use the contour tool, which you can find using the geoprocessing pane. You may notice that there are two different contour tools. One of them is located in the 3D Analyst toolbox, and the other is located in the Spatial Analyst toolbox. We are going to use the one for Spatial Analyst. ArcMap organized all of these geoprocessing tools in toolboxes, and there is a search bar in ArcMap, but it really relies heavily on organizing the tools into different categories. ArcPro's made it easier where it automatically gives you the search bar to use. But if you move to the Toolboxes tab, then you can see all of the variety of toolboxes that are available. And if you are interested in doing some sort of analysis and you're not exactly sure what tool you will need to use, you can go to that toolbox and just explore all of the different tools. For your contour line tool, fill in the parameters as follows. Your input raster will be your clipped raster that you just created. And I would like for you to name your output feature class Contour 5 or 5M. When you have an output feature class option in a geoprocessing tool, it defaults to saving that new layer into the geodatabase that was created with your ArcPro project. For this project, it is fine for you to leave that default save location. Just make sure you update the name so that it's easier for you to understand what you're looking at in your contents pane. Our contour intervals are going to be 5 meters since this is a pretty small area. And our base contour, yours might be slightly different than mine. You need to look in your contents pane at the pixel values for your clipped raster. You can see here that the area that I clipped has a smaller range of elevation values than the overall state DEM. The elevation values for this clipped raster start at 135. And since my contour interval is 5, my base contour is going to be rounded down to the nearest 5 increment. So I will do 135, although if I put 130 in there, that would be fine as well. We're going to leave our Z factor and we're going to as 1, and we're going to leave contour type as contour. This will give us lines If you change it to contour polygon, it will give you polygon, which is not as easy to work with and harder to label and symbolize. Then click Run. And now you have your 5-meter contour lines. They have been added to your map. And we're not going to use the DEM anymore, so you can either remove that from your map or just turn it off. Now I want you to zoom in and examine your contour lines. You can see that they are quite jagged. They're not smooth like the normal contour lines that you see on a topographic map. To solve this, we are going to use the Smooth Line geoprocessing tool. This is in the cartography toolbox. Our input feature is going to be our 5-meter contour line. And we are going to do this twice so that you can see what the smoothing tolerance parameter does. So for your first time running the smooth line analysis tool, let's name it contour 5-meter smooth 10. Leave the smoothing algorithm parameter set with polynomial approximation. Our smoothing tolerance we will set to 10. And then we do not need to check for topological errors, so you can leave that setting as is, and then click Run. Okay, we have our smoothed contour line, and if I turn it off and then turn it back on, you can see that it is smoother than our original 5-meter contour lines, but it's not completely smooth, and I think that we could smooth it a little bit more. The smoothness is related to our smoothing tolerance. So let's run this one more time, change the name to Smooth 100. Keep all of the parameters the same, except the smoothing tolerance will change from 10 to 100. Now we have contour lines that look more like what we are used to seeing on topographic maps. Now we are going to label our contour lines. We are going to use our Smooth 100 layer, so you can turn off or completely remove from your map your other contour layers. If you have your contour 5-meter smooth 100 layer selected in the contents pane, then you can select the labeling tab in the navigation ribbon. Here you can turn on your labels, and you can change the field that it is using to label from ID. That's not a helpful label for users of this map. You need to change it to contour. I don't really like the way that the labeling ribbon has all of the information presented, so I am going to open the labeling properties pane by right-clicking on my layer in the contents pane and then selecting labeling properties. Here I'm going to change the position of the label, and we're going to change the placement section from regular placement to contour placement. And then we are going to change the centered straight to centered curved. And lastly, we are going to add a halo to our labels so that they stand out a little bit more from the base map. To do this, switch back to the Symbol tab and scroll all the way down until you find the halo option. And then change your halo symbol from no symbol to white and click apply. Now that we have created and labeled our contour layers, we are going to create 3 supplemental layers for our topographic map. Remember that to create a new layer, you use the catalog pane and you can create this layer in your project database. So you right-click on the database, click New, and select Feature Class. You will be creating 3 new feature classes. The first one is a parking lot layer, which will be a polygon. The second is another polygon layer called Buildings. And the third is a line layer called Trails. I have just created my 3 new feature classes, and before I digitize into these feature classes, I'm going to clean up my content pane a little bit. I'm only going to use the Smooth 100 layer to display on my final map, so I'm going to delete the other contour layers that I don't need. Going to change the order and just go ahead and turn off my contour layer because I do not need it right now. And first I'm going to digitize the parking lots. To do this, we need to switch to an imagery base map. You can, well, and then I'm going to zoom out and I will show you guys where the 2 parking lots are located. The first parking lot is located, let me turn on the imagery hybrid so that it has a reference layer. Okay, the first parking lot is located a little bit south of the intersection of County Road 637 and County Road 635. It is this area here. It's a little fuzzy and hard to see. If you would like better imagery, you can go to your catalog pane and you can add the 9-foot or the 9-inch imagery that the Arkansas GIS office has. If you choose to add this imagery, you will need to change the display scale so that it is displayed when you are zoomed in, or the visible scale range is what it is called in our properties. So just select to show that layer at all scales. Otherwise, you won't be able to see it when you're zoomed in really far. Now, if we were creating this layer for public consumption, the digitizing that we are about to do would not be acceptable. We would need to go and do some field data collection on the actual locations and shapes of these parking lots. But since this is just a practice map, it's okay for us to do some kind of shoddy digitizing work. So again, our first parking lot is located south of the intersection of our 2 county roads. And you can just draw that in using either the imagery base map or the imagery raster that you can get from the GIS office. The second parking lot is located all the way down this county road at the Buffalo River. And you can see it is located here. There's also a bathroom here. I've been here a couple times, but we cannot see the bathroom on this image, and we also really can't see the parking lot. So just draw this in to the best of your ability. We just want to have a couple other supplemental layers in our topographic map. And if you feel so inclined, you can also draw in the parking lot that appears to be over here on Water Oak Lane. This is not going to be high quality digitizing, but I want to show you guys how you can turn a straight line into a curved line. So I'm using the Create Features tool, and I'm creating a polygon for this parking lot. Once you've created your polygon, you can use the Modify pane to click Edit Vertices, and then you can hover over the line segment that you want to turn into a curved line, and then right-click, and you can change your segment. Right now it's a line, and we can change it to a circular arc, and then you can change the way that arc moves. And this just makes things look a little prettier. Overall, it's not recommended to digitize off of such low quality imagery, but it's all we have for now. This is an incredibly rural area, so it's not surprising that we don't have any higher resolution imagery with which to digitize. So I'm just going to call that good, my ugly little parking lot. I will save my data and show you guys. I already digitized the other parking lot down here. I just used an ellipses because I really could not tell the shape of that parking lot. Next, you are going to digitize your historic buildings, which unfortunately we cannot see on the aerial imagery, either on the state's imagery. We also can't see it on the imagery base map. You can sort of see that maybe there's a building there. Now, these are pretty cool historic buildings, and I know that there are 7 in this area. There's a couple located up here, there's a couple down here, and a couple through here, but we can't see them with any of these imagery layers. So what we're gonna do is turn on our streets base map. And the streets base map actually has 3 of these buildings on the base map. So we're just going to copy those shapes right into our building layer. Okay, there are our 3 building records. And lastly, we are going to draw in the trail that is located out here. In order to do this, we have to use a special base map that is all the way towards the bottom of your base map list. It's the USGS National Map. This is the only base map that shows this trail. And it's not the highest quality base map. When you zoom in, it stays really pixelated. But this is our trail right here. It's this reddish or purplish dotted line. It's labeled Rush Hiking Trail. It runs all the way from the area where this parking lot is, near the historic buildings, down to the Buffalo River. I want you guys to digitize the entire extent of this hiking trail using your hiking trail line layer. And you may need to check that your snapping is turned on. That way you can snap the edges of your circle or of your loop of the trail. So to make sure snapping is turned on, in the bottom left of your map view, you can hover over this button. And as long as this is toggled on, that means your snapping is on. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in this trail. Now, you guys can make your parking lots look really ugly. That is fine. I would like you to spend a bit more time on your trail, just because while it's still low quality, we can see it a little better. So I'm going to make my initial trail outline for this loop. and then finish this part. Oh, that did not quite finish. I need to pull up my modify pane. I guess edit vertices maybe. Add vertex, and then click on the continue feature tool. Let's see. There we go. Now I have my complete loop. But the loop does not have such sharp corners like this, so I'm going to use the modify feature, the edit vertices again, and that will allow me to turn some of these line segments into arcs. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but I would like to see that you spent the time trying to make some of these line segments better match the curvature of the trail. Okay, I think that is somewhat sufficient. Now I will pause this video and I'm going to digitize the rest of the trail, and then I will show you guys how to make your map layout. The next step is to create your PDF map. To do this, we have to create a layout. Go to your Insert tab, and in the Project group, there's a new layout option. Let's do a landscape layout, and you can either choose the tabloid or the ANSIC size. And the first step is we are going to add a title. Before we add a title, just notice that when you add a layout, it creates another tab beside your map view. So you can switch back between these two, and when you're in the map tab, you can see that we have our normal tabs available, or when you're in the map view. And then when you're in the layout view, some of our tabs change to allow us to do things with our layout view. So in the layout view, on the Insert tab, you're going to go to the Graphics and Text section, and we're just going to add a basic text box. This allows you to draw a text box, and then you can click on the Text tab to update your text sizing and change it to bold and center your text. Sometimes the centering of the text is weird and you have to click out and back in to get it to work. So name your map Historic Rush Topographic Map. Next, we are going to add our map to this layout. To do this, you still need to be on your layout view. Then in the Insert tab, you are going to add a map frame. Before you add a map frame, let's go back to our map view and set our scale to 30,000. And make sure that we have our area of interest in the middle. And then we'll go back to our layout tab or to our layout view, and then our Insert tab. And here we will insert a map frame. Don't insert the default extent. I'm pretty sure that will insert a map of the whole world. Instead, we want to do the one next to it, which is just map. So that is going to insert a map frame of our map view. Once you've done this, you might see that your map is not zoomed in or centered in the way that you want, and it's very difficult to figure out how to fix this, but once you figure it out, it's quite easy. So click on, make sure you're in your layout view, and then go to Layout, the Layout tab, and go over here to this map group and click on Activate. This activates our map frame, and we can't change anything else in the layout view right now. This is how you will be able to zoom in on your map and reposition the map. So I guess being zoomed out to 30,000 was way too far. We need to zoom in to about 1 to 5,000. I want to be able to see the Buffalo River and your end parking lot, as well as the extent of the trail that you drew in, and our 3 tiny little buildings, and your creek. Oh, I have the wrong base map turned on, so let me change that real quick. We are not going to use the USGS national map. Instead, we are going to use the topographic map. Now that I have all of my layers turned on and I'm zoomed to the extent that I'm interested in, I can see that my symbology is not bright enough and you cannot see the trail or really the parking lots or these tiny little buildings. Now keep in mind that this layout was set to a pretty large layout, so larger than just like an 8.5 by 11. So when if this were to be printed out, all of this stuff would not look quite as small. These buildings would be slightly more noticeable up here in the corner. So once you have your map set up and you're done changing the extent in your map frame, you need to go to the top left of your layout view and click this back arrow. And that will take you out of your ability to change the extent in your map frame. If you need to change it again, you need to be in the layout view, go to the layout tab and click activate again. And then as you want to continue designing your layout, adding scale bars and north arrows and other information, you have to click back out of this activated map frame. Make sure that you change the symbology for all of your layers so that it is easier to see in your map view. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so that I can see my buildings and my parking lots, and I will change the symbology. This is for parking lots. I might choose to do a hatch, and to change the color from black to a much brighter color. We can go to the layout and see if that's easier to see. If it is not, I'll just do my basic hatch color I usually choose. And then let's change our buildings to a brighter color. Maybe a bright orange. You guys can play around with the symbology to get it looking how you prefer. And make sure that you change your hiking trail layer to something that is much more visible. You can change the width or increase the width if you think that will make it more visible. And I'm going to change my contour lines to black. Or maybe a light gray. I think that looks good. Next, we are going to add our other map elements. Let's add a north arrow. To do this, in your layout view, you need to go to the Insert tab and choose from the variety of north arrows. I like just the simple one. Also add a scale bar. And now that we've added a scale bar, we have a new tab in the top where we can change the design for it. We want to change the units in the design tab from miles to meters. And then let's make it a little bigger. I guess to make it bigger, we don't actually change the sizing of it. You can change the font so that it is easier to read. Next, we are going to add 2 different text boxes. The first one is going to be a credit box that says who made this map. But as you can see, when I zoom in or when you zoom in your map frame, there's all this information down here about basically the base map and also where your data came from. Most often you do not want this information in your map frame because it obscures the map. We're not going to copy all of this into our credits. We're just going to have our credits say your name and what class you created this map for. But to get rid of these credits that are stuck in the map frame, you go to the Insert tab, and you're going to go to this dynamic text option. And you need to scroll almost down to the bottom. We need the layout section, and you can click Service Layer Credits. And you see how then I just clicked on it and it pulls it out as a separate text box, and now I can simply delete that text box. Well, that usually works. I don't know why that didn't work this time. Let's try again. Okay, our credits. Maybe it said if we delete it, it goes back. I think what I've done in the past is just moved it off the page, and then when we export the page, it will not be there any longer. As you can see, I'm having a problem with it, but I'm going to get it figured out. Okay, I'm going to go to Layout and use my Select. It's just not happy with me. Okay. As you can see, sometimes you just have to click a million times. I've got it over there outside of the layout. It's going to stay there. I'm not going to click on that text box again. Now I'm going to create a text box that I can put map credit information in. And I need to make the text bigger. Probably 20. I'm just going to say this map was created. I don't need to say created. I'm just going to give it a date of October 2024. Faith Mullins. GIS 1. And then I am going to provide some information about where the data came from. I'll say that the contour lines were generated from 2018 DEM data There we go. That is a sufficient map credit for our project. We're going to add another text box, and I think I'm going to do that underneath my scale bar. And remember, you add a text box using the Insert tab. You can just draw in a text box. We need to tell the map user what the contour interval is. It is 5 meters. And I want to tell them the scale of the map. 1 to 5,033. Lastly, we are going to add our legend. This can be the most infuriating part of creating a map layout, so apologies. I do not have enough experience working with layouts in Arc Pro. I have done almost every layout I've created in Arc Map, so I do not yet understand the nuances of legends. So I'm not expecting much from you guys, but there's a couple things that I want from your legend. First off, you need to add one, and you do this again using the Insert tab. And you can choose any of these legend options. Honestly, they all really seem the same to me. You can draw your legend in. I'm going to draw it in much bigger so that it maybe gives me slightly bigger text, because as you can see, nope, it's not going to give me any bigger text, but as you can see, does it make sense why the legend is so tiny when the box for it is so big? No, it doesn't make any sense. But it's okay, we can solve a couple of these problems. First off, you may notice that when you create the legend, now in your contents pane, you have a legend section. This is where you can turn on and off the items that are listed in your legend. You only need to have 4 items in your legend: hiking trails, historic buildings, parking lots, your contour lines. You can turn everything else off. And the way that you edit the text that is appearing in your legend is by editing the text here in your content pane. So I want your trail to say hiking trail, your buildings to say historic buildings, your parking to say parking lots, and your contour to just say contour. Well, I thought this is where you changed it, but maybe it is in your map view. Yes. Okay, so in order to change the name for your legend, you have to switch from your layout view to your map view and edit that name in your content pane. Now, this legend is really tiny, and that's not great for this large map. So the one other thing that we are going to change is the font size. So when you're back in your layout view and you've clicked on your legend, you have a legend tab available in the top. And you should also, it's easier to adjust text size if you double or triple or quadruple click on your legend to get this element pane to pull up. When you're in the element pane, you can change the size of your font. And you do this by clicking the drop down by legend, and it will be our layer names that we want to change the sizing of. I thought it was our layer names that we want to change the sizing of. Is it headings? Nope. There we go. Labels. I don't know why it's labels, but we've got our labels. Text is larger. And now we're going to click, while we still have labels selected, click on the formatting option. And you can turn off, somewhere we can turn off text wrapping. Just right here. Okay, I know that was a lot of clicking. I apologize. So to turn off the word wrapping, go back to legend and then click on our second option, which is legend arrangement options. Under the word wrapping section, you can just turn off the check mark beside labels, and now we have our legend listed nicely. Make sure you save so that all of your frustrating work editing your legend is not lost. And maybe increase the size of the word legend, if it will let us. Perfect. And there you go. Not the prettiest, but a good introductory reference map. You learned a lot of new skills with clipping your raster and creating contour lines, and you got some practice in creating a map layout. The last thing I need to show you is how to export this layout into a PDF format. To do this, first off, make sure you've saved all of your work, and then go to your catalog pane. And now you have a new folder called Layouts. Open that and you'll see the layout you just created. You can rename it here if you'd like. Right-click on your layout and click Export to File. Select PDF file and export it to your week 10 folder. Let's not do JPEG 2000 because I might not be able to view that. And you should not have to change any of these settings, and then you can click export. And you will get your PDF map that you can submit, and that is how you will complete this assignment. Thank you.